Now, I guess we all have one of these days. Pretty much everyone I ever meet has one. But if you've ever tried to explain the state of your phone to some tech-savvy teenager, you'll understand perhaps what Paul has been getting at in today's epistle when he says, we have this treasure in jars of clay. That's what he says elsewhere. But perhaps he might have said, if he was writing in our time, we have this treasure in smartphones with cracked screens. You see, there's a kind of glory in a smartphone, a blazing, illuminating glory when you open it up and get into all the things that it can do. But somehow, I don't know about you, but in my case, the battery's always low, the screen's probably smudged, and the message only really gets through if you're really paying attention, putting your entire focus upon it. Now, in this passage from 2 Corinthians that Sandra read just now, Paul is dealing with veils, things that hide, not bridal veils, but spiritual veils, a bit like the veils of smudges and scratches and cracks that we can have on our phones. Paul is writing to a community that's trying to squint through to the mystery of God. To this day, he says, there's a veil over their hearts. But here's the good news. Paul says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. The veil is lifted, and we see. We see not because we're clever, or especially holy, or better than anyone else, but because the Spirit blew through the room and gave us sight. So with Pentecost just behind us, we can muse on that great gale of the Spirit on that day. Tongues of fire, mighty winds, terrified apostles suddenly speaking with the confidence of archangels. But Paul reminds us that Pentecost doesn't end, which is why I've kept these red robes and altar coverings today. The Spirit hasn't just turned up for one day, then packed her bags and gone back to heaven. She's still breathing down the corridors of the church, occasionally setting fire to the upholstery. Yeah? But what is it we're meant to see when the veil is lifted? Is it a set of doctrinal propositions? Is it a new way of hating people that we're supposed to love because they're different from us or they think differently from us? Or is it what Paul calls the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ? The face. Not the rules, not the religion, not even the law, the face. The face that turned to the leper. The face that wept at the tomb of Lazarus. The face that flickered in resurrection light by the foreshore. That's what we're meant to gaze upon with unveiled faces of our own, not with judgment, but with transformation. And it's in this light that we turn to Matthew's gospel. Well, you know you're in trouble when Jesus starts a sentence with, "You have heard it said," and then immediately raises the stakes somewhat, doesn't he? "You have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, 'You shall not murder,'" says Jesus. "But I say to you that if you're angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable to judgment." Well, that's no fun. Can't we just be angry and righteous and fume quietly in our pews like decent churchgoers at all those other churchgoers who are obviously far more sinners than we are? No, Jesus doesn't let us off so easily. He digs beneath the letter of the law and he reveals the spirit. It's not just a question about murder. It's about the 1,000 little deaths that we deal with our words. Don't murder people's joy with sarcasm. Don't assassinate their character with gossip. Don't strangle the possibility of reconciliation by letting a feud ferment for 20 years, like a bottle of wine that's turning every day more and more vinegary. Jesus, in his typically inconvenient way, insists that the kingdom begins in the heart. You might appear a shining saint on the outside, just like me, halo and everything. Yeah. But if you're seething with contempt, muttering, "You fool," under your breath to everyone who disagrees with you, then your candle has been blown out before it even got to the altar. This is dangerous stuff, my friends, because it invites us not to control others, not to impose our views on others, but to examine first ourselves. The spirit of Pentecost gives us boldness, not to clobber the world with our truth, our certainties about God. The Spirit gives us boldness to forgive, to admit wrong, to take the first step in reconciliation, even when the other person is still being an absolute terror. This is not weakness, it's courage, it's prophecy. It is resurrection life breaking in here and now into our daily realities. So what do we do with these words in this week after Pentecost? Perhaps we could start small. A phone call to that estranged brother, sister, or friend to whom we haven't spoken in years. Maybe a prayer for a politician that you can't bear to watch when you see him pop up on your phone, but he still deserves your prayer. Perhaps a conversation that you've been avoiding for rather too long, carried out at last in the light, not in the shadow of your own resentments. And we could remember that the church was not founded on theological clarity or bureaucratic elegance, or even moral purity. It was founded in a room full of frightened people, visited by wind and flame. The Spirit did not sit them down and ask them to do a theological exam, but she came anyway. And the same Spirit now lifts the veil, not so that we can stand around saying, "Oh, isn't that a nice bit of glory?" But so that we can reflect it, so that we too can become the face of Jesus to one another, even to those that we'd rather glare at from time to time over the top of our glasses or pews. Because here's the thing, in the end, the Christian faith isn't about being right. It's about being transformed. And transformation doesn't happen when we dig trenches and hurl theological grenades. It happens when we dare to love as Christ loves, fiercely, foolishly, and without a checklist. So let the veil come off. Let the anger fall. Let the Spirit breathe through us. And may we, unveiled, unarmed, and utterly unqualified, reflect the glory of God with cracked screens and smudged lenses and hearts burning with love and mercy towards all. Amen.